Hello, Adjunct Professor Moran. This worksheet is on the business cycle. It is in connection with the notes provided, and a file with this has been included online. In order to understand how the economy is doing, we need to measure GDP. We're going to measure it in dollars. GDP is the final market value of all goods and services produced in a period of time. When GDP is rising, the economy is growing. When GDP is falling, we're in a recession. In order to understand GDP better and to better manage the economy when things aren't going well, we're going to do something called analysis. Analysis is when you take one thing and break it into its component parts so you can understand it better. So we're going to take gross domestic product, and as we studied in a prior chapter, we're going to break it into its component parts of the expense approach: consumer spending, business spending, government spending, and net exports. Economists don't like to write negative numbers. Economists and accountants don't like to write negative numbers with a dash because you don't know whether it's a dash or a minus sign. So negative numbers are often placed in parentheses. This means that imports are larger than exports, and we have a trade deficit. These numbers are in billions of dollars. So what's 10,000 billion? That's 10 trillion. 2 trillion, 2 trillion, $729 billion trade deficit. So what we want to do is we want to add the four components to get the total. Then we want to subtract out the change so we know which way GDP is going. So when we do that, if we add up 10 trillion 95 billion, 2 trillion 214 billion, 2 trillion 808 billion, and subtract out 729 billion, the four components, we get a total of 14 trillion 388 billion. Similarly, we get 14 trillion 5 billion, 14 trillion 605 billion, 14 trillion 235 billion, 13 trillion 812 billion, 13 trillion 751 billion, 13 trillion 866 billion, 14 trillion 312 billion. This is a common thing to do, to write these without all the trailing zeros. Does an additional dollar really matter? So this would be billions and trillions. Now, from here to here, GDP has increased by $122.7 billion and has increased over here. So 2008 quarter one and 2008 quarter two represents growth or expansion. Now, GDP is a difficult number to calculate, so it's only released once every 3 months. 12 divided by every 3 months, 12 months in a year divided every 3 months is 4. So these are quarters: quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. January through March, April through June, July through August, July through September, October, November, December. Now, 2008 quarter 3, the number's getting large here, indicating possibly growth, but it's getting smaller here, indicating recession. So this is a peak. From quarter 4 to quarter 1, January, February, March, right, we have a negative GDP change. So this is a recession. And from 2009 quarter 1 to 2009 quarter 2, we continue the recession. But from here to here, it's negative. But from 2 to 3, from quarter 2 to quarter 3, the number's getting larger. So this number represents a trough. And from 3 to 4, the number is now increasing. So what we have is, you could call this a recovery because it happened directly after a recession. Otherwise, you call it growth and expansion. This is what is referred to sometimes as the Great Recession. I don't really like the term Great Recession because it implies it's up there with the Great Depression. And you can see that this recession lasted 3 quarters, but the Great Depression lasted a decade. And the unemployment rate in the Great Depression was 25%. The unemployment rate in the Great Recession was 11%. But that, you'll hear this referred to like that. It was because of a banking failure. Now, to see it better than analyzing the numbers, we can graph it. And you can see that from here to here is growth. This is a peak, right? 2008 quarter 3 is a peak. Then we have a recession here, and we have a trough, and then recovery and growth. This is calculating gross domestic product and the business cycle.